started in Unity when I was 10 years old, and it made all the difference. So we give thanks for that. Amen. All right, this is not intended to be guy bashing, but the jokes that I picked out this week kind of could be seen that way. So we're in the forgiveness business, right? Easier to get forgiveness than permission, fellas. By the way, we have more men in our congregation than most Unity congregations, so that's really a good thing. All right. So the wife asks her husband, "Do you want dinner?" And he says, "Sure, what are my choices?" And she says, "Yes and no." "My wife thinks I don't respect her privacy enough. At least that's what it says in her diary." I didn't think you'd react that way. Fellas, never laugh at your wife's choices. Remember, you're one of them. And this is probably the worst one. For those of you that don't want Alexa and Siri listening in on your conversation, they're making a male version that doesn't listen to anything. Oops. Oh, moans and groans. And you know you're getting old when friends with benefits means having someone who can drive you at night. That's good for this group, right? Yeah, all right. Oh, you know our audience. Know your audience. So my message today is called Unity Essentials, the 5 basic principles that are not so basic. And the board and I have been talking about attracting new people to our ministry who maybe have never heard of Unity and they don't know our basic teachings. And once a year to kind of go through, I try to do the Fillmores in August because both of our co-founders' birthdays were in August. But again, the 5 basic principles are not so basic, and when we really integrate them into our way of living and being and doing, it makes a difference. So in Unity, we're encouraged to align with the universal Christ consciousness, with the Christ spirit within us. And we are a Christian religion. Sometimes we don't think of it that way, but we are a Christian faith-based religion. And we want to align with the Spirit of God within us to receive that wisdom and that love that will allow us to live our best lives ever. And so with respect for all faith traditions and faith in the same Spirit of God in every person, Unity finds it unnecessary to have a fixed, established set of creed and dogma. It's kind of, if you become aligned with the Christ within you, that's your infinite intelligence, that's your guidance, that's your connection to truth and life and well-being. And we don't need to put any rules around that. Our role is to help you be deeply in touch with that so that you live out a life of joy and wonder and health. Emily Cady, who wrote Lessons in Truth, which is one of the basic textbooks that Unity claims as its teachings, she said, upon entering the study of Unity, now I want to pause right there. Remember when you first came to a Unity church? A lot of people say, I walked in there and I didn't know about half about what they were saying, but it felt good, so I went back, right? I didn't understand. They were speaking affirmations and they were reciting things and they were chanting things and all that. I didn't know any of that, but I liked what they said, right? So Emily Cady says, upon entering a study of Unity, she advises you should, so far as possible, lay aside for the time being all previous theories and beliefs so that you save yourself the trouble of trying to put new wine in old wineskins. Save yourself the trouble of trying to put old teachings that can't be poured into old ways, new teachings that can't be poured into old ways of living and being. And our wine connoisseur is here, and he would tell you that new wine in old wineskins, there's a chemical agitation. The old wineskin is there, and if you try to put the mixture of the new wine into it, a chemical reaction happens and it bursts the old wineskin. That's what happened in it. So when they say you can't put new wine into old wineskins, it just explodes everything apart. She goes on to say, Dr. Cady, if there is anything you do not understand or agree with, just let it lie passively in your mind, for many things that may first arouse confusion, or even antagonism will be clear and easily accepted a little later on. One of my friends, this is just, I'm going to put parentheses around this, this is a bit political. One of my former board presidents in Nashville sent me an email this week. She says, "What's wrong with people?" in regard to the election. And it doesn't matter what side you're on, but she asked the question, how can Unity people believe all the negative things that are happening? And I won't say which side she was on. But anyway, so then I wrote back and I said, well, in Unity we teach you to deny all the appearances and affirm the truth. So of course you can deny all the alternative facts or whatever. Anyway, I just thought that was interesting. She said, what's wrong with people? All right. Continuing, Dr. Katie says, after your study is completed, if you wish to return to your old beliefs and your old ways of living, you're free to do so. But for the time being, when you begin to study unity, it's important that you become, as Jesus says, as a little child. Except you become as a little child, you will in no way enter into the kingdom of heaven. Until you suspend that intellect, well, not the infinite intelligence in you, but the human rationalizing, reasoning, analyzing part of you, and open your heart to true love, really, the love of the Christ Spirit, the love of God, you're not going to make the shift up into wholeness as quickly as you could if you didn't turn off those antagonistic thoughts. So in our study of unity this morning, I want to review the 5 basic principles. They're really the essential beliefs of unity. Really, the first one is the main one, and the other 4 are really practices that lead you into agreement with the first one. So the first principle, I had these all on slides for you, but the first basic principle, and they're printed in our bulletin, and you'll see them printed different ways. But I took these right out of Unity Fundamentals that don't exactly match the phrasing of the 5 basic principles in our bulletin, but it's all the same, semantics. And the first principle is God is absolute good everywhere present. Do you believe it? Do you believe it? Either you do or you don't. And if you say, well, I'm willing to believe it, and then I'm willing to see that demonstrated in my life. I'm willing to live that out. God, divine mind, is the name we give to the source and essence of all that is, and there is no other enduring power. Well, what about the devil? An adversarial power and negative conditions. But in unity we say that's a shadow in your mind. That's not the radiance of the Christ. That's not real. That's not real. We affirm each week there is only one presence, one power, one love, active. And when I read this, I was reminded it's active as my life, not in my life. That I am an expression of the Christ being. There's only one presence, one power, one love, active as me in the universe, in my life, everywhere present. God the good. God the good. And the ultimate aim of each of us should be to come into a consciousness of an indwelling God as all good. But man, oh man, we bump up against things in our human life, don't we, that don't seem so good, that don't appear good. But the first idea of God as absolute good, it can be difficult to accept. And that's really the training and the spiritual development within you, that you hold to the good no matter what, and then you see it evidenced in your life. Sometimes we say, well, I say problems come never to punish but only to teach. That there's wisdom and intelligence in each trial that we face. And does it seem Pollyanna to say, well, I'm going to look for the good in that? Oh, look, it's there. Oh, no, it's not there. It's really pretty. God is absolute good everywhere present, it says, principle 1. All right. Many people have at some time believed, this is Emily Cady, believe they've been affected by, victimized by, or maybe even held hostage to the conditions of the world. And Emily Cady says, all suffering stems from this belief. I mean, this is a U-turn with an ocean liner. God is absolute good everywhere present, even in the cancer diagnosis, even in the loss of a loved one, even in a bad day at work, even in a driver that cuts you off in traffic. God is absolute good everywhere present. And when we begin seeing from that perspective, we begin seeing from that truth, that absolute truth, it has the capacity to change everything in your life, right? It's perfectly natural, she says, to try to escape from troubles by trying to change something outside of us, trying to change it out. But all lasting change comes from within. And then metaphysically, she talks about the history of the children of Israel coming out of their captivity in Egypt. Egypt was lower consciousness, and the Israelites were bound, stuck in lower consciousness. They thought it was Pharaoh or something outside of them that was binding them, but they were living in lower consciousness. And Moses, who represents spiritual law, he was the law that led them into higher consciousness. He led them out of captivity into higher consciousness. It doesn't, when you're facing something, I think it's helpful to say, where am I living in my consciousness right now? Am I in low life or am I in high life, right? Am I in lower life or high life? And no matter how difficult circumstances may appear or how much it may seem that some other personality, some other person, some coworker, some medical condition is the cause of your trouble, God the good and good alone is the solution, is the solution. And it's not magic when we hold to these things and then we see the results. We see the healing. We see the reworking, the reorganizing, the realigning, the peace that's made, the understanding that comes. It builds your faith. It builds your faith until you walk in that so fully that you do two things. One, if you have a challenge, you meet it more successfully. But most importantly, you don't bump up against as many challenges in your life, because you're just radiating an essence of good, of God the good, and it attracts to you and vibrates from you all of that goodness. When you're troubled or confused and cannot see any way out, there is already eternally in place a divine essence within you. So your answers are already there. They're eternally there. They're with you forever. A divine essence within you that's available for your complete deliverance, your complete way out. Emily Cady says, God is my defense and my deliverance, held in the silence until they become a part of your very being, will deliver you out of arguments of the keenest lawyer in the world. Right? Donald Trump could use that one. Right? He's got a lot of lawyers that are coming down. God is my defense and my deliverance. Let's affirm that. God is my defense and my deliverance. That defense that protects you, and that deliverance that leads you out of any trouble you may find yourself in. This doesn't mean we'll never come to a seemingly impassable Red Sea or an impossible Red Sea. Doesn't mean we'll come up against something that looks like a block that we can't get around. But Moses said then, fear not, stand still and see the salvation of Jehovah, which he will work for you this day. For the Israelites, for the Egyptians whom you see today, you will never see again. And then they're washed away in the Red Sea. So the first step, fear not, stand still, and reaffirm that truth. One presence, one power, God the good, in me, as me, in the universe, everywhere present, every moment present. And see the salvation, see the saving grace of Spirit. That Spirit will work in and through you, in and through you. If we have the courage to persist in seeing only God in everything, our troubles will be dissolved or turned to our advantage, and we will prove for ourselves that we are one with divine mind. And in this oneness, we have dominion over all things. So, I'm always reading in my favorite book by Dr. Carolyn Leaf, Switch on Your Brain. And a brain is distinguished from mind. There is divine mind, which is this universal God essence, everywhere present, only good, universal God energy, source energy, Allah, Buddha, Krishna, Wakantan, Great Spirit, whatever you call it. It's in us, around us. We're like the wave in the ocean. We can't get out of the ocean. We're in the wave in the ocean. We're a part of it. We're created in it. But as we open to that divine mind, then God speaks to us in ideas and drops an idea into our brain that catches that idea, into our mind that catches the ideas, the absolute spiritual truth of divine mind. And then we begin to turn it over and work with it, which we'll see in steps 3 and 4. But it's mind as brain as distinguished from mind. When we say divine mind, we're talking about the allness of God, the essence of God that's absolute good, all creative, all things. And then it comes into our mind, which is mostly the area of our brain and our heart, the body brain, from our mind and into our heart. Katie says, oh, that we could only realize that this mighty power to save, to perfect, to deliver, and to make us alive lives forever within us, and so cease now forever looking outside to something else. That can feel lonely, can't it? If you're in the hospital room in a bed and you're really sick, and okay, God the good, you know, I kind of like the little joke says, I want something with someone with skin on. Someone that can hold my hand and stroke my hair or whatever. Those people will show up. That person will be there when you need them. I tell the story of when my father was dying. They'd moved him out of his assisted living into acute care into the hospital, and I was running back and forth. I didn't know he was going to die that soon, but he was in severe trouble, severe decline. So I went over to the hospital, and I walked in, and there was this nurse standing by his bedside, and she looked like me. And she was really tall, really tall, 6'1", 6'2", big, large-sized woman, nurse, blonde hair, but she looked like a bigger version of me. I looked like a mini version of her. And I was so tired because I'd been up most of the night with him in the emergency room, and then they moved him into acute care and all that stuff. And I even said to her, I said, we look alike. And she goes, yeah, we do. And she had an accent from somewhere, Norwegian, Swedish, yeah, we do, you know, kind of thing. And I said, well, I said, I need to go home and sleep for a few hours. She said, go ahead, I'll be here with him. I'll be here with him. And she was kind of holding his hand in the bed and everything. So I went home, I slept a few hours. My dad passed that day, and things went around, you know, took care of all of that. And then I went back over to, it was American River Hospital. I went back over to find her, to thank her that she had stayed with him through the night because I couldn't be there. Actually, I was with him when he died, but that one night she gave me a night of rest. And so I went into the nurse's station, and I asked for her, and they said, there's nobody here that fits that description. And I didn't get her name. And I said, yeah, she was on the shift that night. It was Sunday night. It was 8 o'clock. I was in the room. She was there. Nobody. So who was that with my dad? Who was that with me? Angel, maybe? It was certainly an angel, whether it was a human angel or a mystical angel. But I went back to thank her and find her, and I never did. I only learned there was no one like that had ever worked there in the hospital that fit that description. So, oh, that we could only realize that this mighty power is to save, to perfect, to deliver, and to make alive our lives, and it's forever within us, and so cease now forever looking outside to something else. When you need help, it'll be there with skin on in ways that are perfect for you. Second principle, number 2, human beings have a spark of the divine within them, the Christ Spirit. They're very essences of God, and therefore they are also inherently good. If the Christ Spirit is within us, and that nature is absolute good, then it follows that we're absolutely good, that our essence is good. The very essence of humanity is of God, and we have that spirit of, that spark of divinity within us. And sometimes this is the one that takes the most revisioning, the greater understanding in our lives, that we are not worthless drabes, you know, born in poverty or sin or terribleness or whatever, that we're children of God, that we're children of God. I am the Christ of God. I am the expression of the Christ Spirit in human form, in manifest form. And to be able to live that and be that, She says, it can be easy to believe we're something less than, not as smart, not as fit, not as worthy, not as adequate, not as good looking, not as successful as others. And for many, it's a real breakthrough to realize that human beings are divine. We are not created as pre-programmed biological robots. Not at all. We are the living expressions of the divine. And your body is a holy temple, is a temple of the Holy Spirit, which you have from God. And if God's Spirit dwells in you, that makes you absolute good. Goodness. Some people like the word goodness better than good. Inherent in each of us is an indwelling Christ pattern of perfection. And that's a perfection of perfect life, perfect health, perfect peace, perfect strength, perfect joy, perfect love, perfect wisdom, all the 12 powers and more. And there's a pattern of perfection. And when we're aligned with God, we live in that flow of perfection. But we can get, the human self of us can get tweaked out of alignment, right? But when there's no separation between the human self of us and the spiritual self of us, the personal self, except where? In our thinking, in our belief, that we think we're separate from the divine, that we're somehow created and born out from it. But we're not. We each come forth out of God, manifesting the Christ Spirit in our own unique way. I lift up in prayer, and I access the Christ Spirit differently than you do. You lift up in prayer and access it and live it out based on how you look, the health of your body, the wisdom. Everything that you do is a living expression of how you're relating to the Christ Spirit within you. It's different for each of us. All the good in your life comes from an understanding of and connection to this pattern of perfection of the Christ Spirit within you. And when you take hold of this truth that you are the Christ of God, then there's nothing that happens to you. There's nothing, anything that happens to you. There's nothing anyone does or says about you that can take away your worthiness, your divine essence. It's impenetrable. Jesus most fully demonstrated, he aligned more perfectly with the perfect pattern of the Christ Spirit. So sometimes you saw him functioning as the Christ, and sometimes as you read Scripture, he was functioning as Jesus the man. But he was, in unity we teach, perfect man demonstrated. That all of the attributes of the Christ Spirit showed up in and through him. That's why we say he's way shower, elder brother, teacher, but he said the things I do, you can do also. The same Christ Spirit that was in Jesus is in each one of us. He accessed it more fully than most of us do. But some of us have accessed it as perfectly as Jesus did in moments, haven't we? You've had moments in your life when you have been aligned in that perfection, and you know that you know. Oh, that we could hold those moments and stretch them out into a couple hours at least, or a couple of days, right? The fifth principle, and I'm not delusional, I'm taking them out of order. Number one, God is everywhere. God is absolute good, everywhere present. The second principle, human beings have a spark of divine in them. The fifth principle is knowing and understanding the laws of life, also called truth, is not enough. You have to act them out. You have to live all the truth that you know. That's the fifth principle, is taking action. This was, in so many ways we have an opportunity to do this. We actually come to a place when we live from the Christ Spirit where our search for God and truth is no longer about the rewards. Oh, I'm going to be really spiritual and win the lottery. Okay, good. That's a good idea. I ask for the jackpot ticket when I buy a lottery ticket. I used to say I'd like to have a ticket, and they gave me a ticket. Then I said, I want a winning ticket. Then they gave me a ticket, and I'd win anywhere from $5 to $1,000. Now I say, I want the jackpot ticket. Right? Right? You got to vibrate with what you want. Oh my God, the minister gambles. I'm just open and receptive to the flow of spirit from multiple directions. All right. So what I heard a minister say, a unity minister say one time that I really liked. He said, unity people are seekers, right? You're open to new ideas, new faith traditions, new everything. So you go to Unity, and you go to Spiritual Life Center, and you go to Religious Science, and you go to Metaphysical Journey, and you go to Espen Shades, and you go to, and he said, at some point you stop seeking, you land and you make a choice, and you learn those principles, and it's deepening into the principles, whatever faith tradition you choose, that makes a difference in your life, that makes a difference in your consciousness. For some, at some point, we must stop seeking all the various spiritual paths and choose one and live the principles. Because otherwise you're channel surfing, you're subject surfing. Oh, have you tried Spiritual Life Center? Oh, have you tried Unity? Oh, have you tried Unitarian? Oh, have you tried Methodist? Have you tried Presbyterian? I used to be a Catholic. What is it? If you stop and choose and study the principles, it raises your consciousness, which then raises your life. Flip-flopping from one spiritual path to another never builds the depth of understanding that comes from fully embracing and living the principles. Practicing unity, we come to know that we are created in the image and likeness of God, and that every right thought we think, every unselfish word or action is bound by immutable spiritual law and filled with good results. And when you practice that enough and you see it in your life, it's just you walk in the lightness of God. It's amazing. So I'll finish with essentials number 3 and 4, because this was the basic teachings of the Fillmore, prayer and right thinking. Prayer opens your heart, and right thinking is when you allow your intellect and your analysis and your rationality to come in. And you combine those two. A lot of times in unity, we're speaking, affirming intellectual faith tradition, and we skip the emotion of the heart. But it takes both mind and heart. So essentials 3 and 4, 3 came first, which was, let me find it here. Principle 3, human beings create their experiences by the activity of their thinking. Everything in the manifest realm has its beginning in thought. And we say in unity, what you think about, you bring about, right? Thoughts held in mind, what? Produce after their kind, right? Charles Fillmore said, when we direct the power of exalted ideas into our body, we exalt the cells and release their innate spiritual energy. The ability to pick up the life current and through it perpetually vitalize the body of our life and affairs is based on the right relation of ideas, thoughts, and words. And I would add feelings. These mental impulses start currents of energy that form and also stimulate molecules. Science is finding all of this now, right? Cells already formed begin to produce life, strength, and animation, where inertia and impotence were a dominant appearance. So thoughts held in mind produce after their kind. Human beings create their experiences by the activity of their thinking. And principle 4 is the prayer part. 3 is right thinking, 4 is prayer. Prayer is creative thinking that heightens the connection with God mind, divine mind, and therefore brings forth wisdom, healing, prosperity, and everything good. So through prayer and right thinking, we align our mind and our heart with God. And the invitation is simple. Come ye apart and rest a while. That's Mark chapter 6, verse 31. Come ye apart and rest a while. Jesus taught that prayer is conscious communion with God. And unity teaches that quieting the mind and allowing those ideas to drop in, essential, what he called it, exalted ideas of truth to drop in, is really all we ever need to do. That will lead to the understanding of one presence, one power, active as me, in me, God the good. Prayer and right thinking. Emily Cady concludes, if a person becomes ill or feels hopeless, discouraged, frustrated, or unsuccessful or unhappy, let him curb his words so that every statement he utters or thinks is positive. Slowly, steadily, inevitably, the shadow disappears, grows smaller and smaller until it vanishes. It's not things that happen overnight for a lot of us, but as you practice these truths, you get better and better at them. Dr. Cady, she asks a really important question. She says, has the person merely hypnotized himself into believing what's not true? That's kind of what my friend, the former board president that sent me the email, she said, what are people thinking? Have we hypnotized ourselves into believing what is not true? She says, is he ill because is he ill but believes himself well? Are his circumstances altered? The human mind, where the unlimited power of God dwells, has the power to effect all change. It commands the body, and the body obeys. It commands the circumstances, and the circumstances are altered. Do you believe it? Do you believe it? I remember calling the office of the guy who's the motivational speaker. Can't think of it, his name will come to me. Anyway, you call the office and they answer the phone. Good afternoon, it's a beautiful day. Do you believe it? You know, and that right from the start, they want to call you up to a higher way of thinking. You're caught off guard at first. Good afternoon. It was Arkansas, I think. Good afternoon, it's a beautiful day. Do you believe it? This power commands circumstances, and circumstances are altered. It is not the conscious mind that does this. It is not the individual who does this. It is the power of God that dwells within that does it. It's not your intellect. It's not you, human strength. Our outer life is the outflowing of the inner life. And the inner life is fed from the fountain of life through the Christ Spirit at the center of our being. We have to learn how to receive it freely, how to open ourselves to its flow at the center of our being, exactly as we would open ourselves to the warm rays of the sun. And we receive from Spirit by affirming life and refusing to let ourselves fall into negative, defeating attitudes of mind or routines of living. Right? The warm rays of the sun, just open and receive. The more I study, the more I pray, the more I preach, I'm just so about surrender and releasing to the Spirit of God and letting that essence do everything in me and for me. God the good, everywhere present, is a life force. It's an invisible, constructive, intelligent force that even science cannot explain. I connected recently with a friend I helped go through ministerial school, and when he came, he was a pediatrician, a doctor in Romania. And we reconnected recently. He sent me an email in a place I never check, but I checked it. And we're reuniting in Milan when I fly to Italy. But he left pediatrics and became a medical doctor at the penitentiary in Timisoara, Romania for the last 15 years. And he was on my Monday morning class, and we were talking about this very thing. God is good, everywhere present, a life force, invisible, constructive, intelligent force that even science cannot explain. And he says, in all of our medicine and all of our new technology and all of our everything, there is yet more. We are not touching the essence of God. It is underlying everything, everything. This silent, invisible force builds the body and our life, and it very cleverly operates it by processes that personality dwelling in it does not understand or direct. That brings us back to principle 1. The intelligent life force is known as God. God is principle, definite, exact, unchangeable, everywhere present, absolute good. So there you have it. 5 essentials. God is absolute good, everywhere present. We have the spark of divinity in us, prayer and right thinking, and then when we know all that, we take action to live that from our lives. You're all experts in it. You're just taking the advanced classes. So let's take that into prayer now and seal our experience. So take a deep breath in. Exhale it out. Relax your mind. Relax your body. Let the light of spirit wash over your face, any place there's any tightness in your jaw, your cheekbones. Relax your shoulders back. Sit up straight so the flow of energy flows in and through your spine easily. Let there be light in your abdomen, in your heart. Let it flow down over your lower body, your legs, your feet. Let it radiate out from your heart to your arms and your hands. And just let go. And let the Spirit of God within you have full dominion. One presence, one power, one love in you as you. And as you think about your life, if there's something right now you want to create or heal or change, some circumstance or condition, if your life is perfect and you can just say, I love my life, and jump around in the joy of that, let your mind just rest there, wherever you are. Let it be okay. Let the inexhaustible energy and power of the divine move in and through you, readjusting that pattern of perfection that is you. See yourself standing in the radiance of the Christ Spirit. Stand up tall, your head held high. The expression of joy, smile on your face. A peaceful beat in your heart. All of your world is perfect. Now rest in that for a few moments. The perfection of the Christ. Breathe it in. Exhale it out. Let yourself move more deeply into this feeling of completeness, this feeling of oneness. Every part of you is in this perfection right now. And everything less than that perfect light dissolves away. I like to think of it as butter sitting on a windowsill on a hot day. And the butter just melts gently, gently. Any negativity, any illness, any fear, any anxiety or anticipation about anything negative or less than just melts away. And all that's left is the light. am the light of the Christ Spirit. I am the light of the Christ Spirit. Together. I am the light of the Christ Spirit. You're created in the image and likeness of this perfection. And when you release the energy in your body responds. When you release this light energy in your circumstances and conditions, they're altered for the better. So right now, again, just feel after that. I am the light of the Christ Spirit. Together. I am the light of the Christ Spirit. And continuing in that awareness now, we let our thoughts move out to our loved ones. All the people, places, and events that we especially wish to bless with this idea of God as absolute good in their lives. We bless all the names in our prayer chest, each of you sitting here this morning, each one of you watching or listening online. From the center of our being to yours, from the center of the Christ Spirit that is us and is you, in that oneness, we affirm you are the light of the Christ Spirit. Together, you are the light of the Christ Spirit. And we know in our truth that all goodness then is surrounding those we love, protecting, guiding, providing. We can surrender any concern into the all-knowing mind of Spirit. That infinite intelligence and infinite love is present to them right now in this very moment, and they feel it. We also bless our nation in the election process. The same infinite intelligence of Spirit, this infinite love of Spirit is guiding our nation. We affirm this same wisdom and love for any place in the world that there's conflict. We affirm this same wisdom and guidance, love, peace, and security for those responding to the Hurricane Helene. Any place where there are weather patterns that are destructive. We speak the words of Jesus Christ. Peace, be still. The Fillmores taught us that our words matter, our thoughts matter. And so for this time of renewing ourselves and remembering, we give thanks. And we are blessed. And together we all say, Amen.